um, adorable little characters puppets that I'll bring out for you in a second. But yeah, so here you go. The three basic parts of the brain that we teach in Focus Kids and really relates to this idea of self-regulation and co-regulation are our prefrontal cortex, which in Focus Kids, we teach the kids is the wise owl of your brain. That's kind of, I think of it as like the control center of your brain, all sorts of like thinking and planning happening there. And I will talk more about this in the next couple of slides. The amygdala, which is your guard dog, and that's basically the stress center of your brain that's reacting to threat, fight, flight, and freeze. And your hippocampus, which is the memory center of your brain. So this is so fun, and I'll bring out my actual puppet, but kids that are at Blue Lake or other schools that have used Focus Kids, they see this little guard dog, and so cute. They love to kind of touch him and pet him. And basically we use this, like your guard dog kind of barks at like threat and danger and looks out for things that are wrong. But your guard dog also overreacts to things. And sometimes, like maybe imagine there's a big problem, like there's a bear in the backyard. Or sometimes guard dog can react to a little problem, like I don't know, I can't find my shoes, or my tower fell, or whatever it is, depending on developmentally on the age of your kid. But this guard dog is, the brain name is called the amygdala. There's actually two of them, amygdalae, that are almond-shaped parts of the brain back by the brain stem. We all have them. Interesting part is that your amygdala are fully developed at birth. So, and this is kind of what keeps you alive, right? It's like your survival mechanism that causes you to fight, either, physically, but also causes us to fight with our words. Kids do that all of the time, right? Even if it's just like, that's mine. That's kind of a territorial amygdala thing. So let's see, fight, flight, which would be run away, like feeling super scared that your kid runs away or you run away, or embarrassed. Sometimes a feeling of embarrassment can cause that as well. And then freeze, just like basically feeling paralyzed, like you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, you just kind of shut down basically. And like babies have this fully when they're born. So not the rest of parts of our brain are not fully developed at birth, but this one is. So I even just think about, kids, babies being born and kids crying at the top of their lungs. Like this part of the brain works. But then the more kind of sophisticated parts of the brain take a longer time to work. And guard dog is so cute in this picture, but sometimes your amygdala gets a bad rap. Like it's always, looking out for threat and overreacting and things like that. It's like the seat of big emotions as well. But the function of this is that it's like made to protect us. It's made to keep us safe. It's kind of, I don't know the exact connection, but it's kind of like a connection really with that negativity bias, right? That like keeps us alive, keeps us safe, keeps us protected, those kinds of things. So that's part one. Actually, this is a good time to like comment about that, or anyone want to share something about, I don't know, could be your kid's guard dog going off recently or something like that, or a connection. Sometimes kids also, if they've gotten this in school, they really want to come home and then they want to talk about their guard dog. So, all right, I'm going to move on to the next, and then I'll pause in between. If anything comes up, just let me know. All right, so next is our prefrontal cortex, our wise owl, and this is what the one that I have looks like, and she kind of turns her head around. So this is what I was saying is like the control center part of your brain. This is where all thinking, learning, like any sort of executive function, like planning, prioritizing, anyone who does meal planning, which I don't, but if some of you are better at that than I am, like that's an executive function thing. Scheduling is executive function. This is all your prefrontal cortex. Also, problem solving. And I talk to kids about this too. Like this could be like, solving a problem like when they get a little older, like 2 + 2, or solving a problem like on the playground where somebody's on the tire swing for too long, and how do you work that out with a kid? Also, you probably heard this before, our prefrontal cortex is not fully developed till like, now they're saying like 25 or 26 years old. So of course we can all drive and vote and drink and do lots of stuff before our prefrontal cortex is fully developed, which I think is interesting. But sometimes we really have to work to like get our prefrontal cortex online. And then I'm going to ask you all just to do this with me for a second. Take a breath and just put your hand on your forehead right here like this. And just apply some gentle pressure. Take a deep breath. So this, your prefrontal cortex, and it kind of feels, it's a very grounding thing to put your hand there, but your prefrontal cortex is basically behind your forehead in your brain, behind that part of your skull. And I think it's really interesting because often like when we can't remember something or we're trying to think of something, right? Like how many times have you gone like this? And you're like, oh, what is that? Or what's that person's name? Um, and I don't know, I think that's an interesting, like intuitive thing that we do that's like, oh, but this is also accessing this higher order thinking part of our brain. So I'm going to give us a second here. Does anyone want to chime in or comment about that part? All right, we'll have a chance to like give some examples after I introduce our last brain puppet, which is hippocampus. I introduced her today I was at Ross Montessori earlier today. So here's Miss Elefante. If your kid is in Little Blue or something like that, they'll be getting this. I don't know if our preschool teacher has been there yet, but just think elephants have great memory. Well, the hippocampus is basically the memory center of our brain. So it holds everything from like memories of like children can, that memory, it's not a like conscious memory, but like they intuitively remember the sound of your voice, like in utero. That's there. As they get a little older, it's like, oh, they have memory of like their, Christmas when they were 5 years old or something like that. And some kids do and some kids don't, but whatever memory it is, or being on the playground, but also memory that they hold in terms of learning and things like that. So the prefrontal cortex works together with the hippocampus. Things need to be processed through the prefrontal cortex before they go to that memory center of our brain. But when our good friend, I'll just scroll back a little bit here. When our good friend guard dog is all acting up about something, right? Our prefrontal, they don't work at the same time. So the wise owl and the guard dog can't work simultaneously. So I even think about like, oh, I don't know, I'm having to take a test or something like that. And if I'm so worried about it, that part of me is taking over, that fight, flight, and freeze part of me, I'm not really able to fully access my prefrontal cortex, which is thinking and figuring things out, or in turn, then access my hippocampus, which has holds all those memories and whatnot. So I feel like that's like a really short course in important parts of the brain that we need to know about. I'm just gonna pause there for a second and just give everybody a chance to, yeah, maybe I'll I'll call somebody's name and just kind of, you can comment, say something that you remembered from that, or just kind of sum it up in your own words. Or you could even say like, oh, my kids, I can tell you for sure, like my daughter's guard dog was on this morning when we were leaving the house. And she asked, we were trying to leave a little bit earlier because we got caught in some traffic yesterday. And she wanted me to do a special kind of braid in her hair. But this is like you're asking me now, like this is not the time for this. And even just my like questioning it or something, like I didn't give a hard no or anything like that. She like her little guard dog was like kind of came out in a sassy 10-year-old way. So that's my one connection to that. All right, Kelly, you're on. Any sort of connection or anything that might ring a bell from those three brain parts?
Yeah, and my kids are older than some of your kids now, but I remember some things from when they were kids too. But my daughter is when she gets embarrassed, she sort of shuts down, and I can see that that's a moment for her where it's not a great moment for feedback. And sometimes she gets embarrassed that she's done something wrong, like she knows she's done something wrong, and I have to sort of like just let that lie for a little while and kind of let her save face. And she and I have a private conversation about what it was that she did that was embarrassing to her.
Mm,
Instead of calling her out in the moment with other people around, she just shuts down. Doesn't hear that feedback in a productive way.
yeah.
Um, and then I also just remember like when she was really little, like the first 3 months she was born, I could not put her down. Like she was one of those kids that, like, I don't think she was colicky, but she was not going to abide not being held. We slept with her on her, sitting up, like somebody was holding her at all times because it was just so uncomfortable for her. She was not happy to not be held. And I came to learn that that was sort of her guard dog, that need for her comfort and her safety and whatever she was developing there. But once we just sort of gave into it, it was okay, and it was
Yeah.
really hard, but it was like, this is what she needs. We're just going to give it to her and she'll grow out of this. I'm not going to be holding her when she's 18.
Hard to remember that sometimes when they're little. You're like, when is this gonna happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing, Kelly. Yeah, so that's extreme embarrassment, right? Like that's the freeze response. And how cool that you recognize that and like, okay, I'm not going to get through to her thinking part of the brain now. I have to talk to her a different time. And then I just want to note like the co-regulation. Sorry, this is my note to myself, like her wanting to be on you physically and be held all the time. Like that's what she needs right now. And probably what she was doing is we'll get into this more in next week's session, but she's trying to co-regulate with you. So like self-regulation is, and this is like you don't have to remember this now. I'll talk about it more next week. But self-regulation is our ability to like calm our own strong emotions and get back to center after sitting in traffic for a much longer than I expected to, or something like that. And I can do that as an adult because I have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. I've been practicing stuff like that for years. Probably honestly, when I was like 23 years old, when I was 26 years old, I couldn't necessarily do that. It's like I had to learn that over time. And then our kids will want to kind of borrow our nervous systems and co-regulate with us because they don't have the skills yet to calm themselves down. So just a little note there that that's what your daughter was doing. Anyone else want to comment about one of those brain parts or make a connection with that?
I have like a huge connection with that.
Great.
That's my life.
That's your life.
So yeah, good to hear. Because I'm always like the kids can sleep with us, it's fine. And the doctor told me they would grow out of it by age 8. And my daughter is now 8 and she'll sleep in her room. And I'm like, see, I just needed to hold you.
And now she does sleep. She sleeps in her
And then
own.
I will say with separation anxiety, um, I went into this field because I wanted to spend every single day with my kids. And so sometimes you just pick up a new career so that you can continue doing what you need to do to make everything work. And it works good now.
Hmm. Thanks, Crystal. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm currently dealing with one right now.
Somebody's amygdala's alarm system's
I
going on.
didn't get to put toothpaste on her toothbrush for a second time. Okay.
She had to do it. Yeah.
Well, we don't get to put toothpaste on the toothbrush twice, right? She just thinks it tastes good. Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys.
Sweet. All right. Either Molly or Chris slash Alex. I think Chris and Alex are putting Moses to bed. But
I think with, well, Poppy's pretty little, but I think what I notice with the interactions of the brain is like how accessible is play. And it's pretty basic at this level where it's like, is he hungry? Is he tired? Or does he just want to be, is he feeling like he wants to be with closer to an adult, me or my husband or someone he feels close to? So, as he's gotten older, he too was at the first few months was pretty needed like pretty close touch and kind of colicky too. But it was interesting too because we were like fortunately we were able to spend a lot of time with him, and I've noticed his ability to sort of be more independent has grown since those first few months. I think part of it is probably from having been able to help, like you were saying, co-regulate during those months when he really was like, what is this world I'm in?
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very cool. Okay. So let me go on with this. Let's see. Slides I have now. Okay. All right. All right. So we're going to take a little like kind of guided breathing break at this point. And then I also want to remember to share with you this little a story that I have um, from when my daughter was younger. So just go ahead and like if you're, like maybe if there's anything in your hands, free up your hands. And we're just gonna kind of give ourselves a moment to kind of come inward a little bit. If you like to close your eyes and that feels comfortable to you, you can, but it's not a must do. Or you can just kind of gently gaze down. And I'd like to ring my bell, but I have to tell you, there's something about the bell that often doesn't come up on the recording, or the microphone doesn't pick it up. So I will try it once, and if you hear it, just give me a thumbs up. And if you don't hear it, if I don't see any thumbs up, I'll be like, okay, we won't try to do another one. It just is something about the how the microphone is set, I think. So we're just gonna you're just gonna breathe, and if you hear the sound of the bell, just listen to the sound of the bell here. This is my bell. Okay. All right. And then I'd just like you to be aware of your feet on the floor, if your feet are indeed touching the floor, and if not, if just the backs of your legs are touching the seat, be aware of that. just feel a part of you that is really grounded down into your seat, the floor, the earth, however that is. And just feel yourself breathe in and out. Just do that kind of slowly, about 4 or 5 times. And see if you can make your exhalation just a little bit longer than your inhalation. That exhale releases more energy, tension, and stress from the body. And just allow your nervous system to pause just a little bit. As I just I'll count my in breath and out breath. So we'll breathe in 10, breathe out 9, breathe in 8, breathe out 7, breathe in 6, breathe out 5, in 4, out 3, 2, and 1. So it's a adult version of a brain break. I'm just curious. It really does allow our own nervous system to slow down by kind of pausing, extending the exhalation, or even just slowing your breathing. Those are all things that I encourage you, like, try to do that at one time in your day. And try to do it when everything's fine, because it's so hard to remember when things get kind of stressful in the parenting world. So if you find, like, I don't know, every day, like before I eat lunch, I'm going to take 10 seconds, or I drop my kid off and before I head off to work, I'm going to give myself like that 20 or 30-second break. It's really super helpful for our own nervous system. And we need to be able to practice it when things are fine so that we can access it when things get stressful. And just give me a show of hands on the scale of 1 to 5. How was that for you? 5 would be like, oh, that's awesome. This is totally my gig. 1 would be like, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable. It's not something I do very often. No judgment. It really doesn't matter. I just kind of helps me, like, okay, how is that for you? Yeah. Okay. So 3, 5. Okay, great. So yeah, just that encouragement to pause, breathe, slow down. I think of it as PBS. I've taught this to kids as pause, breathe, smile, but I like pause, breathe, and slow down. Like, it could just be a moment to kind of touch base with ourselves. We're so focused on our kids often, and it's so important to extend some of that love and kindness to ourselves as well. And then I just wanted to share with you this little reset button thing. I don't know how many of you do you have a struggle leaving in the morning? Like, leaving the house is stressful. I know that is a big one in our house, like getting things ready, getting kid in the car, whatever that is. I don't know, my kid is always like, that transition has always been a little stressful. And particularly, actually, when she was kind of in that preschool kindergarten age, there would be, like, I don't know, big resistance, or I would try to even gently hurry her along a little bit and be like, I wasn't like saying like, we've got to go, but I was being like, okay, come on, let's move it along a little bit. And that was enough to get her little guard dog like, rah, really stressed. So something I tried this reset button, and I don't even remember where I got this, but I said, okay, at one point when there was this like big kind of pushback from her, she was like 4 or 5 leaving the house. I said, okay, because I would be like feeling the need to leave the house. I would say, come on, let's go. And she would freak out. And then that would stress me out. So I said at one point, okay, mommy is going to hit her reset button. And I just very literally put my hand on my belly button. I said, okay, this is my reset button. I am going to hit my reset button and just breathe 3 times. And I did it kind of exaggerated for her so she could see what I was doing. So I pressed my belly button and I was like, and I did that 3 times. And, you know, we did that several times as when I started to notice the tension mounting. And then there was some time that I was getting a little stressed about like, time to go, let's leave. And she said to me like, mommy, I think you really need to hit your reset button right now. And I was like, all right, well said. I guess I taught this to you. Okay, let's both hit our reset button. So just a fun little thing, but like a nice connection. I could model breathing for her. She was co-regulating with me in those moments. And then like, all right, she learned enough to know that when my guard dog started to get turned on and kind of call me on that. I cannot believe it's almost 8 o'clock. I want to stop for a second and just say, all right, anyone want to share anything before it's so quick. This hour goes so quick. Anything that's coming up for you with the guard dog or a challenge, or even if it's a challenge that something you want to mention, and I will make sure to try to address it in our session next week. Anyone? And if not, that's okay. I just want to give you ample opportunity to like share and speak and so forth. Hi,
I
Alex.
love the reset button strategy. I feel like we're starting to get to the point where like if Moses we need to do something with him that he's not into at the moment. I don't have the strategies to help him like work through those motions, and I'm excited to give that a try.
Yeah, he's like almost a year and a half. Is that sort of or
Yeah, he's 19 months technically.
okay? Yeah, so still young, and just also I just want to normalize like it is totally okay like that your kiddo freaks out at times or about things like that. That's so normal. And I have to remind myself and remind like kids and parents, like, okay, we're not trying to get rid of like those big feelings. That's part of us. It's like part of being human, right? Like we are going to get stressed out. Like we're going to get mad sometimes. We're going to get sad. But what can we do to like help with those feelings? And I think the big piece that I really see as a parent is like, taking care of my own nervous system as a way to help my daughter. So, and I have to just be really careful as a teacher in that role, like I want to often teach her something or fix something or come up with a solution. But it's like sometimes the best teaching is just modeling. It's like our kids are really bad at doing what we say, but really good at doing what we do, right? So if we want them to do something, we have to kind of model it. And they're the first to pick up on it if we say it and we're not really doing it ourselves. So sorry, they've got this lots going on my screen here. Yeah, that's just a quote from Dan Siegel, is that the best predictor of our child's well-being is our parents' self-understanding. And just by being here tonight, you are developing your own kind of increasing your own self-awareness and in your own parenting. We talked a little bit about this and we'll have time to revisit, but like your kid's guard dog showing up, I invite you to notice over the next week when your own guard dog starts to show up, right? Like mine, that'll happen sometimes in the morning when we are really having to move out of the house quickly, or different things. Like often for parents, our own guard dog goes up when our kid's not listening to us. So just kind of tune in, like when does your own parent guard dog start to turn on? And all right, I am gonna give you all let's see. I just want to put in the chat the link to this feedback form. It's like just 3 questions. It's very short, but I will, oh, I'll put that in the chat in a minute. But that's going to be just really helpful for me in having, just kind of getting your feedback on how, here we go, on how the evening is for you. So there's that. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to do a reading and then, well, actually, I'm kind of curious right now is there something so far that you think you're going to be your one main takeaway from tonight based on first class experience? And you can share or put it in the chat however you like. That piece about the negativity bias. Yeah, thanks for reminding myself to keep my guard dog calm down. Yeah. It's part of all of us.
Sometimes I've taken lately to squawking like a chicken at my children.
Talk to me
When-
about that.
When
That's
everything's out of control and I need, it's like a reset button, right? Like I just go "Bakak," like really loud, and I think it would startle little kids, but older kids, they think it's hilarious, and it just like everyone just resets, like, oh wait, what are we doing? What's mom trying to talk about?
That is so awesome. I don't know. Did someone give you that idea, or you just automatically you were like, I feel like squawking like a chicken? Is that?
Yeah, I was like, I have to do something besides shouting at my children again, you know?
It's so great. It's and also it introduces the element of play, and play is like number one for young kids to get their guard dog down. If you can turn it into play or pretend or just making fun of something, even if you're making fun of yourself, like sometimes I'm like, I think I have to put on my Julia Child voice because things are not going the way I planned, or something like that, just I think that's great. And it's novel, and that also gets them out of their amygdala. So yeah, kudos to you, Kelly. And then thanks, Molly, language around parts of the brain. Cool. So I have one little thing I'm going to read to you, and then we're going to do something kind of short on self-compassion. So yeah, okay, so this is from a book called The Power of Showing Up. I can put that in the chat too. It's a book by Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, who are psychologists. And anyway, it's a good recommended book that I can share a link for you about that. So Dan Siegel says, and this is all for all of you, I want you to just kind of give yourself some credit for making time in the middle of the week on an evening to show up and be the best parent you can be. So he says, you are doing fine. You are showing up. That's what matters. You don't have to be perfect. You can't be. We are all lifelong learners. Just be there for your kids. Love them. Use discipline moments as opportunities to teach and build skills. Model kindness, respect, and self-care. Apologize when you miss an opportunity to connect or you mess up in other ways. They don't need every advantage, and they don't need a super parent. They just need you to be authentic, flawed, and fully present you. And then another piece of that is that, like, this idea of getting it right, like even the parents that are quote unquote getting it right, that means they're getting it right like 30 to 40% of the time. It doesn't mean that they're getting it right 100% or even 80% or 70%. It's like 30% of the time, just moving the needle a little bit. But that also then we're teaching children that we're human, that they can be human, We can redo and fix our mistakes together. Okay, and then I'm gonna and do here with this what you're comfortable with, but oops, where's my next? Okay. This last piece is just about self-compassion, and just take a moment and just kind of put your hand on your heart. This is something from Kristen Neff, who is actually a researcher on self-compassion. And so this simple act of putting our hand on our heart actually relaxes our nervous system. So you just kind of send this goodness into yourself. And you can just hear my words and let them soak into you. So may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I realize I'm doing my best in this moment. And may I be happy and free. And allow a little gentle half smile to form on your face. Just knowing you're doing something good for yourself. And when you're doing something good for yourself, you're doing something good for your kids. So thank you. I wish I had more time with y'all. That's me. And